So good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
It is the book club. The book club has been in existence for 22 years. Sometimes I can hardly believe it myself, but that's it, 22 years and still going strong. So that's great. Now today I am going to present Andre Agassi's autobiography called Open. Now, what can I say about myself? Here I am. Satish and I started the book club 22 years ago, and we have not lost interest in it, which, I keep asking myself, really, how come, what drives us? Just love of reading. What else? Okay. So here we are. Of course, I teach literature, so it's my whole life. And in fact, I have read this book more as literature than anything else. I mean, that's the way I read. So we're going to be talking about Andre Agassi. I think a hero of our times. So many years ago, my daughter, I remember, took to Andre Agassi. And she used to subscribe to the sports magazine called Sports Star. And Sports Star was going to have a special issue on Andre Agassi. So we were waiting for it. But it's a weekly, and the day that it was supposed to come, it didn't turn up. So we thought, well, okay, maybe it's going to be a day late. Didn't come the next day either. So then we phoned our newspaper agent and asked, hey, where's Sports Star? And he says, oh my God, did it not reach you? Oh no, he says it's sold out. So he couldn't even give us another copy because it was apparently sold out. And my daughter was absolutely despondent. She said, oh no, I had to have that. So what I did was I went to my college library and asked for the copy there. So borrowed it, brought it home. We looked at it, but it was full of pin-ups. And there was a 4-page pullout of Agassi that my daughter desperately wanted to put up on the wall. So what do? We don't have the magazine. So the librarian was very kind. She said, just wait a couple of weeks until it becomes out of date, and then I'll give it to you. So she did. And my daughter's walls were covered with Andre Agassi. And it remained that way for quite a while. And then I'll give it to you. So she did. And my daughter's walls were covered with Andre Agassi. And it remained that way for quite a while. Now, Agassi is, of course, one of the greats, of tennis. I'm going to share screen now. Here we are. Can you see the screen? Fantastic. Okay. So now here is a sportsman writing a book. Okay. So obviously, when you read the book and you find that it is so beautifully written, it is so interesting that you can't put it down. And in fact, the praise, that it has got from various journals and whatnot in their reviews, I just took a few of those. Now, the first one says, it is can't put down good. And indeed it is. You do not feel like putting it down. The most revealing, literate, toe-stompingly honest sports autobiography in history. My goodness. I mean, high praise indeed. Now, when you read an autobiography, what are you looking for? You are looking for authenticity. You are looking for sincerity. You're looking for honesty, right? And this one overwhelmingly gives you a sense of honesty. It is from the heart, right? It says, not only has Agassi bared his soul like few professional athletes ever have, he's done it with a flair and force that most professional writers can't even pull off. And I have to agree. When I read the book, I thought, how can Andre Agassi possibly write so well? I mean, how can he? How can he play tennis so well and also write so well? Surely it's not possible. So I looked for, now very often on the cover, it would say Andre Agassi with so-and-so, and that would be the ghostwriter. But there's no such mention on the cover. And I looked around, nothing on the back cover, nothing on the inside. But in the acknowledgements at the end, he does give credit where it's due. And I will say that throughout the book, you see what a generous-hearted person Agassi is, because he would never withhold praise for someone who deserved it. So he definitely gives praise, and acknowledgements begins. So the ghostwriter, is this guy called J.R. Moringa, who has done such a good job. And, like in translations, we read Tomb of Sand not so long ago. When you're reading a translation, you always wonder how much is due to the writer and how much to the translator. Similarly, here, how much is Agassi and how much is Moringa? Obviously the words are all his, but gleaned from Agassi. So I don't think you can divorce the two. Both of them are there and deserve the credit for this book, which is beautifully written, very sincere, very touching. It really touches you. You get a feel of what Agassi is. And he mentions his researcher, his editor, and so on. Now, very interestingly, the first chapter is called The End. That really threw me. Now, imagine an opening chapter being called The End. But yes, he's writing it at the time of the US Open, the final, which he played and won in 2006. And what he says in this opening chapter, I think, is the, shall we say, the perspective which we should take to read the whole book with. So he talks about the love hate relationship he has had with tennis and the loneliness that he has suffered because of it. Now, look at these. I play tennis. I play tennis for a living, even though I hate tennis. Hate it with a dark and secret passion and always have. Please let this be over, he says. He wants to stop. Many times in the book, that is, in many phases of his life, he has decided to stop playing tennis. He can't bear it anymore. He has to stop. But he doesn't stop. So there are all these contradictory statements. Please let this be over. And also, I'm not ready for this to be over. Though it makes no sense, I'd like to get on the court again. I want the pain that only tennis can bring. So he says, I tell myself, if I win this match, I'll retire. And if I lose this match, I'll retire. I lose. I don't retire. You see, that's the way it goes on. He keeps telling himself he's going to stop, but he doesn't. There's another thing that you see throughout, which I think he also realizes, during the course of time, that there is something that he has inculcated from his father, that passion, that need to win, not only the desire to win, but the need to win. And he says at one point, if I can't be the best in the world, I think I'd rather die. And when he wins at Wimbledon the first time in 1992, the emotion generated by that trophy is so huge. Now, another thing that we're aware of from the very beginning is all the health issues that he has to deal with. And this, of course, is something that every sportsman, I'm sure, has to deal with because it is the nature of the thing. You're stretching your body to its utmost. And in doing so, it's very likely that something will be overstretched and injuries occur. Now, other than these, and of course, there are several injuries that happen over time. You can see I've written them there. But he's also born with a problem, which rather complicates things even further. He's born with spondylolisthesis, which means that his bottom vertebra is out of sync with the others. And so constantly throughout the book, you hear about injuries, the pain, the process that, the procedures that have to be gone through to manage the cortisone shots. He's had 13 by the time in the course of the period that the book covers up to 2006. So it's not an easy life. Now, family life, the book, by the way, the narrative is in a way very simple, other than these innovative things like the first chapter being called the end and the last chapter being called the beginning. Other than that, it is a chronologically told narrative. So we begin when Agassi is very young and we go on, as he progresses and so on. So family life. Now, family life, you realize, is very important to Agassi. Whether as a child, He needed to be part of the family. He needed the loving. He needed the closeness. He needed praise. And in his adult stage also, he constantly yearns for friendship, closeness, caring, all that. Now, unfortunately, his father was not a very affectionate sort. In fact, he was very dominating. He was unable to give love. He only had his ambition. His ambition centered on Agassi, becoming the best tennis player in the world, and that was it. And so he drove Andre right from a very young age. And it's not only Andre, I mean, he had two sisters and a brother, all of them. Andre was the youngest. So each of them, Philly being the eldest, then Rita and Tammy, and then Andre, all of them were trained as tennis players, and all of them were put through a very disciplined regimen in which they played tennis, all day. Now, for a very small child, that's really tough. His mother was more understanding, but could not stand up to her husband. And so the father is the dominating figure who set the rules in the house. During the course of the narrative, you also find that his friends are very important, and his best friend is his eldest brother, Philly, who feels bad that he couldn't make the grade in tennis. He wanted to please his father. He wanted to be what his father wanted him to be, but he couldn't be. But there's no jealousy. There's no, there's no malice at all. He and Andre bond very well as children, as adults, and they share everything. Now, money is always in short supply. Andre does not come from a well-to-do family. It's a very middle-class family. His father works at one of the casinos in Las Vegas, and money is spent on tennis. So, what little money each of the brothers get, they always share. And they support each other. Philly is his greatest support throughout. Then he has this friend, Perry, in Las Vegas, who later becomes his manager. And his support team, who you will hear about immediately. Barbara Streisand apparently was a very good friend and would talk to him and even come to see him in times of trouble. Now, the support team. Of course, ultimately, it's Steffi Graf, who he marries. And she understands it all. The agony, the ecstasy, the drive, the angst. Of course, she understands it. She's in the same game. She knows what it is like. There's Gil, who is his trainer, his friend, his surrogate father. There's Roman, his racket stringer. There are his trainers, first of all, Pat and then Gil. There's Nick Bollettieri, coach. Now, I think very famously, Andre Agassi was trained at the Nick Bollettieri Academy. And I think that's what made Nick Bollettieri famous, because of Andre Agassi. So initially, they didn't like each other at all. But ultimately, and Agassi says, I don't know how it happened and when it happened. But then he became his friend. Somewhere along the way, they fell out also later, was replaced by Brad Gilbert, who remained his coach till almost the end, and then replaced by Darren Cahill. Perry becomes his manager at a later stage. John Parentine was a very unconventional pastor and remains in touch with him throughout. There's a young man called Slim who looks after his house in Vegas. Now, Agassi is very observant and very caring. He knows all the security guards by name, at all the various venues. Every time he goes to Wimbledon, he remembers the names of the security guards and so on. And when he was a little boy, he had seen Jimmy Connors hand his bag to somebody to carry. And the little boy, Andre, had felt that it was so demeaning, for that man to have to carry Jimmy Connors' bag. And he swore he would never do it. So however heavy his bag, he always carried it himself. Now, about his father, because when you read the book, you become so curious about the father. Now, if Andre keeps on reiterating how much he hates tennis, and yet he plays it, right? He plays it. So, what is it that drove him to tennis? It's his father. Father, Armenian, born in Iran, worked at one of the tables in the casinos of Las Vegas. And Andre Kirk Agassi is named after his bosses at the casino. Okay. Now, it comes across that the father is a very unimaginative sort, very low uh, emotional, on the emotional quotient. Emmanuel Agassi comes from a very poor background. In Iran, they were dirt poor, apparently. When the British and American soldiers were there, when he was a young boy, he saw them playing tennis all the time. And he started hanging around the tennis courts and became a sort of ball boy, for them, without any payment, without any tips, nothing. But he hung around there. And although Agassi doesn't say so in the book, it seems to me that he began to associate tennis with elitism, with the upper class. And he decided that his children would play tennis. Now, he himself was a boxer, and he was in the bantamweight section, represented Iran in the Olympics, managed to escape out of Iran to the US, and found his niche there, and won the Chicago Golden Gloves. So clearly, he was a good boxer. In Las Vegas, the house that he buys is chosen so that he can make a tennis court in the courtyard. And these estate agents who are showing him around cannot understand why the man who has so little money can dare to be so choosy. But the fact is that he only is concerned about the space outside being enough to make a tennis court there. And finally, he finds it. There is just enough space, and he buys that house. And he makes the tennis court himself. And Agassi makes a point of telling us that his father was not an educated person. He did not know anything about tennis courts, but somehow sheer gut instinct or whatever helped him to make an excellent tennis court, which absolutely worked. Now, all four children are put through this tennis regimen. They're made to play tennis. He makes efforts to make contact with tennis stars who visit Las Vegas. And Las Vegas is a kind of place that people who have disposable incomes are likely to come to. So Jimmy Connors is one of the people that he makes a connection with. He offers to string rackets for Jimmy Connors. He doesn't know how to string rackets, but he teaches himself and he does it. And he values that connection and he uses that connection for Andre. So 7-year-old Andre, is playing tennis all day. And his father makes a ball machine. He makes it himself. And he is made to play 2,500 balls every day. And this is, kind of a demonic almost experience for him. He hates it. And what he does is, he manages to hit the ball out beyond the compound every now and then so that his father has to go for it. Okay. And the number of balls they own is very few. So then he gets a break and he can rest in between all the balls. But he says his father is worse than the dragon. He's completely uncompromising. He will not bear any excuses. The kids must do exactly what he says. He's a violent, aggressive kind of person, tends to get into brawls and quarrels. He carries a gun. And Andre says that he has heard from his father that winning is everything. Winning is very important. Now, when you read the book, you realize that for Andre, really it is not that important, and that people are very important to him. But gradually, this uh, importance given to winning is internalized by him. So that as a child, the first time he loses a match, Andre is surprised how angry he is. He's so angry with himself, mind you. He's angry with himself because he lost. But uh, later we see, his father cannot change. And how much ever his wife tells him and tries to calm him down, but it doesn't work. And there is an instance where the father is about to undergo open heart surgery, and Agassi has come to see him. And in the minute or two that they have together, uh, guess what the father says? Because open heart surgery, I mean, is serious business, particularly then when it was not so sure. And he might be meeting his son for the last time. But what he says is not, take care, son, I love you, but work your volleys, hit harder. That's what he says. And Andres, now this is what he says. I stand and feel an overpowering urge to forgive because I realize that my father can't help himself, that he never could help himself any more than he could understand himself. My father is what he is and always will be. And though he can't help himself, though he can't tell the difference between loving me and loving tennis, it's love all the same. Few of us are granted the grace to know ourselves. And until we do, maybe the best thing we can do is be consistent. My father is nothing if not consistent. So this generosity of nature of Agassiz, is seen again and again. Now, just to give you a cute picture of Agassi when he's 7. This is Agassi at 7, okay? And at 7, apparently already he has shown that he's pretty unbeatable. He's really good. His father recognizes that of the 4 children, this is the one who is likely to make it. And as I said, that his father keeps trying to make connections with people that he comes across, celebrities. And when Bjorn Borg comes, he persuades him to hit a few balls with Andre. Excuse me. And there they are, this is Andre, 8 years old, hitting a few balls with Bjorn Borg. And that is the doing of his father, right? He met him somewhere, he managed to persuade him. He cared so deeply that Andre should have every opportunity. Now, his father also arranges matches with anyone available, right? And Andre never loses. Now, at this point, he's 9 years old. He beats everyone. There is no one who can outplay him. He plays junior tournaments, nationals. Now, when his father realizes that he has taught Andre everything that he can teach him, and now he must go to something better. So he scouts out the Nick Bollettieri Academy and decides to send him there. Now, Bollettieri charges $12,000 per annum, and no way can they afford it. But his father decides that 3 months tuition, 4,000, is 3,000 is an investment. So he pays that, and Andre is to go. Now, the poor child is terrified. He doesn't want to go. He's never been on his own, away from his parents. But he's told in no uncertain terms that he is going. He has to go. Now, when he goes there, by the way, I think now probably things are different. The academy is something somewhat glamorous, and people want to go there. But in those days, it was in the middle of barren landscape. It was barracks. It was rough. It was crude. The food was terrible. And it was, really, really bad. Andre hated it. And of course, the loneliness didn't help. So there were kids from 7 to 19. It looked like a prison camp. For 4 hours every day, they were put into a bus and sent to a school. The school was even worse, apparently. He hated it. And he rebelled. So in what form did his rebellion take? He gets his ears pierced. Now, these are famous things about Agassi, of course, his earrings, his hair. So he gets his ears pierced. He drinks. I mean, I'm shocked, even the coaches tell the boys that if you win, I'll give you a cold beer. And these are 11, 12, 13-year-old boys. But that's what's happening. So he gets his hair cut into a mohawk. When he comes back to the camp, of course, he's punished. He has cleaning duty so that from dawn to night, he's cleaning the campus. But he is afraid. He is very afraid. And he says, after ruling Las Vegas my whole life, I'm now a tiny fish in a vast pond. Because all the boys here now are great tennis players, right? So he has met his match. He's not the best anymore. And that scares him. Now, there's something very interesting he says. To the casual observer, I've done something that seems like a desperate effort to stand out. Getting that earring, getting his hair in some weird haircut. It looks like he's trying to stand out, make a statement. But actually, I have rendered myself, my inner self, my true self, invisible. He's hiding behind that. It's like a smoke screen, right? And this is when you realize his sensitivity and how difficult he finds it to be with people who don't care about him. And he's very lonely. However, luckily, he does get noticed in that sea of boys. He does get noticed. And then he's given special training. Now, he makes a deal with Nick. Imagine, he makes a deal with him, saying that, yes, he will behave himself. He will do everything. He will play all the games that are routed out for him, but he will not go to school. And Nick agrees. So at 14, he stops going to school. How terrible is that? I mean, imagine this uneducated child, But later in life, he realizes what he has missed. And he, in fact, builds a school for underprivileged children so that they should not be in the situation that he was in. So he joins a correspondence course to complete school, but of course he doesn't do it. His mother does the course, writes the essays, sends in the answers, and gets the degree. Now, he's doing very well. Wherever he goes, he does very well. Now, at some of these tournaments, there is prize money if you are professional. But if you're not, you don't get anything. So at one point, Nick tells him, accept the money. But he says, then I'll be pro, and then there's no going back. And he says, so he phones his father. And his father is so annoyed. He says, of course, take the money. What are you there for? And so he takes the money. And that means he's now a pro. First tournament as a pro in New York, he reaches the final and loses to Ramesh Krishnan. I thought, we in India would be interested in that little detail, that Ramesh Krishnan is the one who beats him. And he says that Ramesh Krishnan is a very good player and clearly not recognized enough. He plays John McEnroe. Now, we get his reactions to all these people. All the famous names are there. So he doesn't much care for McEnroe. McEnroe is very bratish, Jimmy Connors is mean. But Pete Sampras is someone he would like to be a friend with. Now he loses against McEnroe, but one return to his serve is so fast and so explosive that McEnroe talks about it to the journalists. And he says, I've played Becker, Connors, Lendl. No one ever hit a return that hard at me. I never even saw the ball. So in these ways, Agassi is getting noticed. This is a picture of Agassi at the school. He's the second from the right. These are all kids who are trying to rebel in some way. As you can see, this is before he had the mohawk haircut. This is another one of them. And when Nick and he begin to get along, He's allowed to keep his hair the way he wants to. So here they are, able to smile alongside of each other. Now, this look of Agassiz, I mean, I remember it, I'm sure you do too. The look was such an important aspect of Andre. It wasn't just his tennis, it was the way he dressed, it was his gorgeous hair, with those multiple dyes in that multicolored hair and all that. Now, he tells the story of how Nike, which is his sponsor, by the way, so they offer him $20,000 for the first year and $25,000 for the second year. This is money that he can't even dream of. So he's thrilled to accept. Then later, now McEnroe is also sponsored by Nike, and they are having a showing, and they've laid out all the range of clothes. And McEnroe gets to choose first, which ones he would like. And he's looking at all the white stuff. And he looks at this pair of denim shorts and he says, "What is that even?" And Agassi's ears prick up and he says, "What is it that McEnroe doesn't like? Let me have a look at it." And denim shorts, yes, that suited him very much. So he chooses those. And that becomes his signature look, the denim shorts and the frosted mullet hairstyle. That's apparently called a mullet hairstyle. However, very early in life, he begins to lose his hair. Now, his hair is kind of a statement, and to lose his hair is terrible. So, I've got a slide only about his hair. So, there is the rebellion, and the rebellion takes the shape of first a mohawk haircut, then that mullet hairstyle, the several colors in his hair. He keeps it long. These are all things that are unconventional and marks of rebellion. Now, he begins to wear a hair piece because his hair has become very thin. And his brother Philly also suffers from the same predicament. So he buys hair pieces for both of them. And this is always something that Andre is anxious about. And he's afraid that the hairpiece will fall off while he's playing. And then what a fool he'll look. Now, he feels that the media is very hostile to him. So they'll have a field day if they have something concrete to make fun of. So in one particular match, he uses 20 hairpins to keep that hair piece in place. And when his coach says, "What's more important, your hair or the match?" And he thinks, "Of course, my hair." Now, when he gets together with Brooke, when he starts dating Brooke Shields, she's the one who says, "What the hell? What is this with your hair? Why don't you cut it off?" And he is shocked initially, but this incident has happened that he has taken Brooke out to dinner at a restaurant and they're not ready to order yet. So the waiter says, "Maybe you two ladies would like some more time to look over the menu." So Andre is being mistaken for a woman. And then he feels, well, okay, maybe I should cut it. Now, again, throughout the narrative, you will find that Andre constantly needs his confidence to be built up by other people. And if people care for him, he follows their advice. He has the faith. And Brooke, well, he's sort of in love with Brooke. Brooke suggests, "Let's cut it off." And she says, "I'll cut it off right now." And he agrees. And they do cut the hair off. This is him with a good amount of hair. So 1987, the first Grand Slam tournament, he is 16. He loses, he's unpopular, but he realizes he's unpopular because his mentor, Nick, is not liked. The Italian Open, the French Open on red clay is unfamiliar to Agassi. He's used to green clay back home. Now, Wimbledon is grass. And not only is this a new court for him, but Wimbledon is very strict. They do not allow the players to practice on the courts on which they're going to play. So his first time on grass is the match when he actually plays. Now, there's a reflection that he gives. He says he is aware that his serve is very average, but he's a returner. He is best at returning serves. He tells Nick this is what he thinks. Nick agrees, and he gets him a trainer. Now, the failures and the losses, initially, he seems to lose everything. He fails everywhere. He's fed up. He has no life. He's exhausted. He's burned out. He's just playing tennis all the time and he hates it. And one fine day, he decides, enough, I'm not going to do this anymore. He swears he will quit. In fact, he goes to the extent of giving away all his rackets to homeless men on the street. Now, they don't know what the heck to do with these rackets. They don't want them. But he says, just take it, do anything you want. 37 rackets he gives away. But as Nick says to him, what else can you do? And as his father says to him, what else can you do? If you don't want to play tennis, what are you going to do? So sure enough, next day, he has to pack to play tennis. And so he has to acquire some rackets really quickly so that he can do that. Now, perceptions. I just mentioned that he felt the media was very hostile towards him. So yes, they would mock him. And he felt it was because he had not yet won a Grand Slam. Now, he did an ad for Canon, the camera, in which the slogan is, image is everything. And there's glorious picture of Agassi. Now, they make fun of him, saying, the image is all he is. He's hollow. There's nothing behind the image. There is only this image, and it's such a stupid image, and that's it. So he's very upset. He says it's just a slogan. How can they think that the slogan is me? Girls. Of course, there are girls, in his life all the time, right from school, when there's a girl called Jamie, and he wants to spend his money buying presents for her at a time when he needs clothes, he needs food, he needs to spend money on that. Then there's Wendy, who's a ball girl, and he's also a ball boy. She lasts for quite some time. He's very interested in Steffi Graf. And many times, he tries to sort of start a conversation, ask her out, but she blows him off apparently every time and ignores him or just says no. Then in 1992, they both win Wimbledon. And it is the tradition to have a ball after the matches. So he thinks, aha, I will now be able to lead her onto the floor. But that year, the ball doesn't happen, unfortunately. So there's not that opportunity. Then somebody mentions to him among his support group, somebody says, you should meet Brooke Shields. She's the most beautiful woman in the world, and she's a graduate from Princeton. She's very intelligent. How can you not find her the perfect woman? And Agassi says, but I don't know her. I've never met her. But never mind, there's such a thing as facts in those days. And so she's filming in Africa. He sends her a fax. She replies. So they fax each other, for a while. And he gets to like her. And they decide to meet. Of course, Steffi Graf is, the golden ideal. But she's too far away, right? Because she is not responding. So standing still, she's a goddess. In motion, she's poetry. I'm a suitor, but also a fan. Great respect for Steffi, right from the beginning to the end. Now, this is a picture of the two of them. This is a picture I remember seeing in the newspapers. Beautiful picture of the two of them after both of them won at Wimbledon. But of course, she was not interested in dating him. She had a steady boyfriend, a racing driver apparently, and that was that. And so Andre begins to see Brooke Shields. And now she has a busy life, so does he. But they manage to meet every now and then. They keep in touch on the phone and so on. Sometimes she's in LA, he goes to meet her. She comes to New York to watch him play. They catch up, and so on. At a time when he is beginning to feel that this is not going anywhere, his friends persuade him that it is time now to take the next step and he should propose to her. And they say, what's not to like? She's so beautiful and she's so intelligent and she's into you. So why not? And so he does what they advise. Again, as I said, his confidence constantly needs a build-up, from those around him. And they suggest that he propose to her, and he does, and she accepts, and they get married. The marriage lasts 2 years. He doesn't like her Hollywood friends, and he doesn't like the Hollywood culture. He finds himself out of place, and he starts not going with her to those events. And she doesn't always want to go to his tennis events. And so, they're living parallel lives. Now, at this point, the marriage is not fulfilling. He begins to lose every match. He is not happy. He's 27. It's a time when a lot of players think of quitting. And the newspapers have begun to say, maybe this is the beginning of the end. Maybe he's about to quit. But again, Gil, Brad, work on him. And when he tells them that the marriage is failing and that they're going to get a divorce, his trainer actually looks very happy. And he says, oh, good, now you can focus on your game. And that's what happens. He reboots his career. He starts again. He begins to play small matches, which he can win, but then steadily works his way up. And 1999 ends up as his year. He wins all 4 slams and is completely focused, on tennis. There's no woman in his life at this time. Brooke is out of it. Steffi has not yet entered into it. And there he is without his hair, as you see. Throughout the narrative, what I noticed was a tone of modesty. There's no arrogance, even when he wins something. Another thing I thought I would find in the book was lots of dates and names of tournaments and the cups that he won. But no, in fact, very often I'm really not sure which year it is because he doesn't mention it. And he merely says that he won at such and such place, but that's it. Sometimes it is half a sentence tells you that he has won. He doesn't go on about it. He is very open, as the title is, he's very open about the mistakes that he has made, the wrong strategies, the refusal to play the game as his coach had told him to, and realizing that it was wrong. He confesses his mistakes. He has underestimated some people. Now, when he sees the opponent on the other side, sometimes he says, oh, the man is looking tired. He played a match yesterday. He must be tired. But he's underestimating the guy. He has a second wind that comes up. So he is quite okay about admitting all this. He tells us that he is stupid, plain stupid at times, that he behaves badly. He curses. He gets thrown out of Wimbledon one year because 3 curses, 3 bad words, and he's out. Also, drugs. Now he goes for a drug test, and some medium level drugs are found in his system, but he is pardoned. Another thing that not only his modesty, but his generosity, very generous, right from his childhood. Now, his father gives him a $5 allowance every day to eat, because he goes straight from school to his tennis work. And he has this friend called Perry who also plays. And Perry doesn't seem to have any money ever. Now, much later, he finds out that Perry is an extremely rich child. But the thing is, he doesn't have any money, and Andre doesn't ask. So he just buys a snack for him as well every day. So that $5 is shared. Also, Philly, he shares his earnings with Philly. Philly also does the same for him. Now, there is a restaurant in Manhattan that Brooke Shields and he like to go to. And the manager there becomes very friendly with them. In fact, sometimes he throws everyone out of the restaurant and allows them to have it as their private place. And he likes the guy, he likes chatting with him. It emerges that Frankie's child needs medical treatment and he's very worried. And I mean, Andre doesn't even think twice about it. He goes home and he tells Philly, he says, turn over some of my Nike shares to Frankie. And the next time they go to the restaurant, he just hands it over. Frankie can't believe it. I mean, who does this? Who does this, But he does. Also, Gil. Now, Gil is his trainer. and he's with him many years, almost till the end. So Gil has a daughter called Casey, who's 12 years old and needs surgery. So Andre takes care of all the medical bills. He buys a house for his parents. He makes sure all his team is, has a good house and are well endowed. And I like this couple of sentences here. This is why we're here, to fight through the pain and, when possible, to relieve the pain of others. So simple. That's what life is. Life includes pain. We fight it as best as we can. And when we see others in pain, we help them through it. That's what you're here for. Then he starts a charitable foundation. Now, by the end of his tennis career, 2006, when he retires, he's made a lot of money, obviously. And he now has realized the handicap that his lack of education has left him with. So he wants to make sure that other children don't have the same handicap. So he starts a charitable foundation. And the first thing that he does is build a school for underprivileged children. So they look around for land and they find land in the poorest area of Las Vegas. And that's where they build it. Now, this is a picture of some of the students at the Andre Agassi College Preparatory Academy. Steffi finally breaks up with her boyfriend and lets Andre know that that is so. Then they get together, and very soon, like within 2 years, they get married. They get married 3 days before their first child is born, Jaden and Jazz. And Steffi has already retired. She retires just about the time that she starts dating Andre. Andre continues. And she asks him whether he would like to give up also. Would he like to hand it in? And the answer, the last chapter is called The Beginning, because this is the beginning after the years of his pro life. And he and Steffi go to play a game of tennis. And then it's time to pick up the children from school. So Steffi is packing her racket away. And he says, wait, I want to play just a little while longer. So this ties up, with all those statements in the beginning. I don't want to play. Yes, I want to play. I hate tennis. I want to play tennis, right? So right from childhood, this is the only thing that he knew. What else was he going to be if not a tennis player, right? So what I found interesting about the book is that it is not what I expected. It is not a series of statistics, about tournaments and what he won and how much he won and how he did it, what his strategy was, how he outplayed a person A and B and C. It's a much more personal narrative. It's more about people. It's about emotions. It's about how he felt in the world of tennis. It's about how he felt when his father forced him into that world and there was no way out. How he felt imprisoned, cornered, suffocated. But of course, it was the only thing he knew. And he had, in a way, painted himself into a corner by leaving school, letting go of his education. There was nothing else he could possibly do. He was not trained for anything else. But I think it is more than just a hate. It is very much a love-hate relationship that he had with tennis. And probably because he was forced into it in the beginning, he finds it hard to admit that he actually loves it. So that is what I have to say. And everyone is welcome to please unmute, contribute to the discussion.
Raja is a tennis mad guy. Raja,
yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
What are your comments on it?
Well, you want me to? I have, I have a great fascination for Agassi because I've watched him play right through the time when he had those earrings and long hair and colored hair till the time he even said, I won't play Wimbledon because of the dress code, which is white. And for 2 years, he didn't play Wimbledon. And then he came back, and then he's the only person who won all the calendar slam as well as the Olympics. So, 5 in a row. So it's something to say about his maturity, that he matured into a great player and a great human being. Maybe some of you may know that, or may not know, but when John Borg went bankrupt, and he sold his and he wanted to sell his trophies. It was Agassi that who bought all those trophies and gave them back to him. So that's the kind of person Agassi is, and it was a tremendous person. I think Steffi Graf did a lot to change his image, and she was really a very mollifying person. I mean, she really was a person who sort of brought him down to earth from where he was. And compared to Brooke Shields, I think definitely Steffi Graf is a 180-degree turn for him.
But mind you, Brooke Shields also gave him that sense of belonging and
That's it.
being
Yeah.
loved, and she was always there in his box. He only had to look up, and she was there. It's only later, when they started breaking up, that she stopped going to his matches.
That was an early phase, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're much younger and you're dating somebody who's
newly
about
in
the
love.
same, yeah. So, and then he got married to her, and of course, but the thing about the punishing game that his father actually imposed on him. This tennis is a very difficult game. That punishing thing is there for really every player that I know, and maybe even in Indian side, do you know Mahesh Bhupati?
Yeah.
His father, Captain Bhupati, when he went to Dubai, he would make him run around the court and made him the player he was. He would work him over and over and over, and make him, become more like a machine.
I think in any sport,
in fact, the
if you
story
want to
goes
reach the
that
top.
This wasn't more. This he was in not Bahrain, but he was in
Dubai.
not Dubai, for Muscat. And the Indians, I went down there, remember, and they told me so many stories about him, how the father used to push him till he cried and things like that around. It was very, very strict action he used to take. Okay, anyone else now would like to take on?
No, I just like to say, Mohini, it was very interesting, though I had joined late because I had a problem at home. I joined late, and I think it's always very interesting to see the backstory of a person who's only about whom the only knowledge you have is his sport. So we don't really know. I don't even know anything about Steffi Graf, but I've seen her play many times. I've seen her win. What kind of a woman she is, I wouldn't know. So, to know what a person is like, why we saw Bjorn Borg when he was playing. And I thought that hardly anyone had played as much as he did with that kind of finesse. And then at 26, he just disappeared. So why it happened, what kind of a person, it's very, very heartening, interesting, and especially someone like Agassi, who you say was so generous and gave support to children. Even brought out an academy. I think it's particularly heartwarming to know that there are people like this.
I mean, he put millions of dollars into that, and of course, even millions of dollars are not enough, so he raised millions of dollars also. It's an ongoing project, and that school apparently has absolutely everything. So it is, as you say, heartening to know that this man who's made a success of his career is looking to underprivileged children and wanting to help them.
And now he's about what age? About 52?
52, yeah. He's 52 now.
Young man. He still has a long way to go and handle this thing that he has started.
I had the book, and it was quite a revelation when I read it, and I read it twice, because the Agassi I knew as a tennis player and the Agassi I read about in his autobiography are so totally different. And the way that he hated tennis, but he loved tennis also.
Yes.
And it's amazing. I mean, it's quite a shocking revelation to me.
But now I'm just showing the book. See, this is the cover.
That's right.
Now it's called Open. All right. So, US Open, French Open, etc. And open your life story, you're opening your heart out, all that. Now, the picture that he has chosen to put on the cover, it's not his best picture. Why this picture? And
Question
I
mark.
feel, huh?
Mark. It makes you question.
Well, I think it shows his vulnerability.
Also, yeah.
And that's what comes out. And I don't know, Raja, what you're saying that, the Agassi you see in the book is not what you thought. I always thought he must be a very sensitive person. I did somehow. And he is. In the book, it comes out that he is.
Hmm.
You know the time when he was in the top and then he went down because he was totally disillusioned and he went down to 142 in the rankings.
Yes, in
He
1995,
went down very badly, and people had given him up, saying he's over and out, and so on. Then he's coming back and then winning the US Open and then he winning 8 Grand Slam titles. And he said his second homecoming, he says probably he's won more Grand Slams after the age of 29 than anyone else he knows, So that's something, right? So you usually win in your 20s, but he won more slams after the age of 29.
But again, that time, it is his support group that rallied round.
That's right.
And made him sort of willing.
Right. Oh, Jill Reyes is the person who was his fitness coach. Oh, yes. Amazing person.
Hugely supportive. But I think, now Agassi could have told the story slightly differently. He could have said, I decided, right? But he doesn't. He says, Gil said, so-and-so said, and so on. He gives the credit for this to those other people. And I think that's part of his generosity. That's how he is. That is his generosity in giving credit, to other people.
Mo, I think Usha Pasi want to say something.
Yes,
Usha,
okay. Usha?
No,
she says.
I mean, that's why I said we'll have you.
No, she was here, I think, last time also.
No, I just, I'm grateful to hear your perspective. I couldn't read the book. I'm teaching a course right now, but I will read it. Living here, Andre Agassi's got a huge persona, right, in the US. And what I did see of the book was that he's quite vulnerable. I like the way Mohini described it, because, there's the public life that celebrities have, but their private lives are quite different. They're quite real.
Yes.
And I think it's important for us to understand that the public life is created and the private life is real.
Absolutely. There is a point when he's being interviewed by a journalist, and it's when he's, gone back to tennis and started winning, what Raja was talking about. And they say, you love tennis, don't you? And he says, yes. And they say, would you like your children to play tennis? And he says, obviously he's expected to say yes. So he says yes. But actually, Steffi and he have decided that their children will never play tennis.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah,
both of them have had enough of it.
See, this is what I was saying. It's a pity, actually. See, unless you push yourself now for physical performance, for anything, in order to be the best of the best, you have to push yourself.
Yes.
Nowadays, competition is so keen that it starts earlier and earlier and earlier. So actually, I would say all of our great performers, they would have started very young.
Yes.
Would all have had similar childhoods.
Yes.
Where all the childhood things fall by the wayside. So it's a pity that they can't really have a normal life till they retire.
Yes.
And this is unfortunately something which goes with the territory, and it's a pity. I just reiterate that it's a pity.
Indeed. So the last chapter is called The Beginning.
Beginning. Yeah, I read that. Yeah.
So that's when his real life as such is going to begin. But also he says, I want to play a little more. So, that it is that love-hate thing is going to continue that way.
And I think all of them probably have a love-hate thing, because anything which becomes it devours into your entire life, it becomes the only thing in your life, you have to hate it.
You resent it. Of course you resent it. But also, if you don't do that, you're not going to reach the top.
You're not going to reach the top. So there you are. So these are people to sort of admire, I feel. But on the more real scale, I would never like to emulate.
I know. They didn't have a childhood, right? This is the thing. Andre feels he didn't have a childhood. And such a pity. Now, at one point, he tries to tell his father that he would rather play football you know.
Mm.
I mean, he's 8 years old or something. And he understands that his father wants him to excel in sports. So, okay, why not football? And father just says no without any explanation. So he goes to his mother, and his mom says, "You want to play football? Sure, you can play football." And she gets the jersey and all that for him and drives him to the football field. Father comes home, finds these two not there, discovers where they've gone, comes hot foot driving after them and drags him off the field. He's going to
Yeah.
play tennis. Now,
Yeah.
why did he want to play football? Because it's a team sport. You're not alone, you know, there are other people with you. He says tennis is lonely. You're out there on your own. You have an opponent, you know, no one with you. So I thought that was so sad, you know.
But to his credit, would you know that he and Sampras, when they were the Davis Cup team, they won the Davis Cup for America against Australia, and they won 3-2, and he was captain of the Davis
Yeah.
Cup. So he loves team sports too.
Yeah, and Pete Sampras is someone that
Mhm.
he constantly played against, usually
That's right.
lost to,
Yeah.
but liked, you know, he liked him.
Yeah.
Sanjay, you're quiet today.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very comprehensive account that you've given of the book, Mohini. But why did you leave out the Nelson Mandela aspect, that he
Oh,
went to
okay. Why
Africa?
don't you tell it? Yes, yes. I
No,
mean, you know,
I read the book long years ago, at least 10 years ago. But I remember Brooke Shields and
oh, he's
We
frozen.
lost you.
Yeah,
He's
I
frozen.
think he's
Sanjay,
frozen.
we lost you.
Anyway, what happened is that there was a chance, Brooke was filming in Africa, and there was a chance to meet Nelson Mandela. So, of course, you know, Agassi was interested. And he says, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, and Mandela, you know,
That's
they
right.
are sort of at the same level.
Yeah.
And he meets Mandela. And Mandela has this lovely smile, and, you know, all those years that he spent in prison and all that, you wouldn't suspect it. The sweetness. I forget what he says, though. He says something to Agassi, which is like a message, you know. Probably keep doing what you're doing well, or some such thing. Yeah. So yes,
Can
that
you
was
speak
there.
a little bit about the style? Is it kind of conversational? Is it confessional? What is it?
It is so from the heart. You know, that's why I read out some pieces
I
to give
wasn't
you
there.
a flavor, you know, of the writing. It is so from the heart. It is like a heart-to-heart talk with
Yeah.
someone, you know, just being completely frank, completely open. That's it. Completely open. It's very sweet. It's very disarming. It's very endearing. It's moving. You really feel for this guy. And as I said, you know, another sportsman might have chalked up all the victories and talked a lot about technical stuff, about strategies and which racket and, you know, all that. But he doesn't. There's only one instance about rackets where he's always used a Prince.
Yeah,
And
he is the
Nick
prince.
Bollettieri, now he says Nick doesn't care about the game. He's only in it for the money. You know, this is his assessment early on. And Nick tells him that he's going to play with a new racket now. So dump all the old ones, and this is the new one. The new one is a Donne. But he doesn't like the Donne. And he says, but why? You know, I like my Prince. So he says, no, this is what you're going to play with. Now, he can't play with it. He doesn't like it. So he gets back his Prince and plays with it. Then, of course, the Donne people complain to Nick because you see, Nick has taken money for this. It's all about endorsements and all that. And he doesn't tell Agassi that. He just says, this is the racket you have to play with. And Agassi realizes it. He says, oh, that's what it is. Then he has a frank talk with Nick and he says, look, I want to play with my Prince. You have to show the Donne people that I'm playing with a Donne. Now do what you can. So what they do is they use a Prince racket, but dress it up to look like a Donne.
Mhm.
So
But
that,
you know, Donne was the racket used by John Borg.
well,
Oh, really?
whatever. But Agassi wanted his Prince.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to play with the Prince, otherwise
Well,
I
I
can't
use the
play.
Prince. I still have my
Yeah, I
Prince.
mean,
I love
Nick
it.
needed
Yeah.
him to win also, right? I mean, Nick
That's
was
right.
riding on Andre's success, wasn't he? The Academy was riding on his success.
Hmm.
So they and Agassi has said it in the book. And I don't know what the Donne people are going to think about it. But he said he used a prince which was dressed up to look like a Donne.
Yeah.
Ginny is there. Hi, Ginny. She's woken up early to talk to us. Switch on.
Switch on your mic, Ginny. Switch on your mic.
Yes, I have nothing to add, but I thought the presentation was fascinating. And I'm so interested that the ghostwriter was able to, they must have worked terribly closely, and the ghostwriter really just wrote what came from.
Yes. As I said, you know, it's very hard to know where to draw the line. I mean, how much came from the person and how much from the writer? Impossible to say.
Shanti said that the same person has written the story, has co-written Harry's story. Prince. Now, I have heard reports that that book is not that great. I mean, I don't know.
See.
I don't know, but yeah.
Okay.
Mohini, who is Nick?
Nick Bollettieri.
Nick Bollettieri is big coach in Florida.
His coach. Latika, there's this academy, you know, the Nick
Yes.
Bollettieri Tennis Academy in Florida, which today is so famous.
No,
very famous. But in those days, it was very new. It was sort of a boot camp for tennis players. You know, kids
Serena
who wanted
Williams
to
went
become
there,
tennis
and
players.
all the Williams sisters went there, and all the good players. Jim Courier went, Sampras went there, and he's a very famous coach all over.
But when Andre went, that was the early times. You know, that was early days, and it wasn't that famous, and it was very rough and ready, very rough and ready. And Nick himself, at least now we are seeing him through Andre's eyes and then through the ghostwriter's eyes. But Nick seems to be a very uncouth character.
But,
Not very likable.
The one about Sampras and Agassi, I think he writes about this very well. You know, Sampras is the serve volley player, the best at that time, and Agassi was the baseliner, and their matches were fantastic. And the way he used to write, he hated losing to Sampras. The matches between Sampras and Agassi were the best to watch, you know. And even now then, if you watch it, oh, it's amazing.
Yeah,
and do
different kinds of game.
Do you know the story about how he beat Boris Becker? You know, watch his tongue. Did you hear about that? Boris Becker had this thing about where he would serve.
Yes.
And then,
his
you know, if his tongue would be in the center, then Agassi would stand in the center of the court to it. And Boris Becker was flabbergasted. How did he know where I'm going to serve? And if his tongue was to the left, then he'd stand to the center of the line. Oh my gosh. And he said, read my tongue, you know, sort of thing. Oh boy, some of the things are amazing.
Really, honestly. So weird. I mean, I thought it was so weird.
Now you prompted me to read the book again. This is my third time.
But you know, it's nice to know. Look, I'm not a sports person at all. Okay, at all. And I enjoyed the book so much.
Yes.
It is just written so beautifully.
Mohini was reading the book. We had gone down to see athletics of my granddaughter. And Mohini had this book in hand. Two people turned around and told her, no, it's not a good book. Things like that. It's not that he's not telling the correct story.
Yeah.
Someone else also told us the same thing. Anyway, Mo, I think Gautam is there. And anyone else? Who's SS? Hi, SS. I don't know who you are.
And Friana, what about you, Friana? Gautam. Let's have Gautam first.
Oh, I'm just a frivolous comment that to be a
little louder, please. Can't hear.
Just saying that to be a persistent and successful sports person, you need to be uneducated and not qualified for anything else in life.
Well, that's the result, I would say. That's the result. That's what happens if you
so the school
very
which
hard
he has
at your
set up, the school he has set up, Andre Agassi, the kids are going to get educated and they're not going to be sports people.
They won't make too much money. Okay, that's right. Okay, anyone else? SS, that's it. Hey, there you are.
Oh, Sanjay, we lost you
Sanjay,
then.
we missed you. You got shut off. Go ahead.
So
query
Sanjay, just
from you.
finish what you were trying to say earlier.
Yeah, I was just referring to this meeting between Mandela and Brooke
Agassi.
Shields, and the other was the incompatibility. I mean, you have a Princeton graduate in French literature versus a school dropout, and probably it was something that was doomed to fail, isn't it? There was too wide a gap. She was more of an extrovert person who wanted new experiences and a wider circle of friends, whereas Agassi was more comfortable with his few friends in his familiar atmosphere. He really didn't feel the need to go out and have fun, you know.
Yeah.
So probably that is, and the other thing that's probably not mentioned in the books, I don't think it's there in the book, I don't recall, was probably that during the relationship, the shadow of Michael Jackson and Brooke Shields' relationship never quite went away. That was always there, I think. So that was a
It's
bit
not
of
in the
a.
book.
Oh, it's not in the book.
It's not in the book.
Yeah. And
Okay.
even yeah, I think that's all I had to add. But thanks, Mohini. Thanks. It brought back memories of a different age when we were actually young and could actually play tennis.
Yeah, I think more. Everyone's gone through. Friana is
Yeah,
there.
Friana, would you like to say anything? I want to thank Friana. First, I want to thank Friana for being there, because this time, you know, the technicalities of sending the invite and all that, I did without anyone's help. So I was scared whether it would work or not. So I asked her to be there, our resident expert.
Well, anyways, I wouldn't have missed this one anyways. It's been a long time since I've attended one of Mohini ma'am's lectures, if I were to say it that way. But this book was, I'm actually not too much into tennis as a sport, but I think this book intrigued my interest to a certain extent.
You know, it's so readable.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, with biographies, it's always a little subjective for me, because you never know if the story told is the story it is, right?
And
so,
especially when it's funneled through a ghostwriter also.
Yeah, so it's a little skeptical on that front. And then today also, when I heard two different sides of the same story, it again that question of how true is the truth said in a biography. So
yeah, well, you know, there are only versions of the truth.
Yeah.
Manali, you have just come in. Okay.
Okay, so I think we'll stop recording now. We can keep chatting maybe.